Voila. Kind of cool how this is doing this. And we are now officially streaming live. This is what is the date today? I know today is Wednesday, but it's August 13th, day
Yes.
one officially of the expo floor of the Fire Rescue International. Eric, it is a pleasure to be back in the podcast booth with you in person,
Yeah,
brother
we're
from another
back,
mother.
man.
Yeah, we are running it back. It's like we never left.
Once again.
This is a little podcast hut that the IFC has set up for us, and we're going to be spending a lot of time in here together. So, um, christening the first podcast of the day.
Cheers.
Great to be alongside you, and Katie Wood. So let's do quick little intros around the horn. I'll start. Kevin Sofin, IFC Tech Advisor and fellow podcast host with Eric Wittenberg. So, and Eric.
Yeah. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm also happy to be here. Kevin and Katie wouldn't know this, but Kevin, I'll say we are also thrilled we don't have a fly in this booth because every single session we did last year, there was a fly buzzing around my face. So cheers to that. I might have just
Now, I want to say moderately distracting. It was extremely distracting.
Right.
And then we also had the automatic light switch continually going on. So it was like we either have flying us or the lights going off.
We've stepped up, man.
Yeah, I'd say we're
in a booth.
Like, we're good to great.
We're in a penalty box with Katie Wood. I'm Eric Litzenberg, having done a career in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And now I'm the senior wildland fire advisor for the International Association of Fire Chiefs. And Katie, tell us about you.
Right, good morning, and Eric and Kevin, thanks for having me here. I'm excited to be here, and I'm glad that the setting has been a bit upgraded by the time I got to sit in the hot seat. So appreciate it. Again, my name is Katie Wood, and I work at the National Wildfire Coordinating Group as a program manager out of Boise, Idaho, there at the National Interagency Fire Center. So excited to be here and have this conversation today.
Awesome. All right. So you probably just said a bunch of things that people at this conference, which is Fire Rescue International, Orlando, Florida, IFC's conference, and probably a lot of people listening to this don't understand. And so we're going to explore those for a second. Tell us, what is the National Wildfire Coordinating Group and what is what they call NIFC? What are those?
Super great questions. So the National Wildfire Coordinating Group, I'm going to simplify it by saying it's NWCG. So from here on out, for folks listening, NWCG is the National Wildfire Coordinating Group. And essentially, we're one of three governance bodies at the national level within the Wildland Fire Organization. And our role in that setting is to develop standards and qualifications for the wildland fire setting. So when folks go to any sort of wildland fire and we cross coordinate there, when you show up at with a yellow shirt, doesn't matter what agency you work for or who you represent, we recognize each other's qualifications and we're able to work forward. And
yellow shirt is yellow shirt.
Yellow shirt is a yellow shirt is the theory.
Yep. Good theory. Okay. So NWCG is at NIFC.
Correct.
The National Interagency Fire Center. What is NIFC? What does it look like?
NIFC is a place.
Okay.
So NIFC is not an organization, which is oftentimes can be confusing for folks. So NIFC is basically a large coordination center where you think of all of the major players within wildland fire have a seat at the table. And that's where all the magic is made from a national level perspective. So the traditional federal agencies, but we also have folks like yourself, Eric, that come there on a monthly basis. And that's the hub where all the magic happens within wildland fire.
Nice. Can people come see the magic?
Absolutely.
Is it Oz?
This is where the magic happens.
I would call it Oz.
But there's a curtain that gets pulled back.
It's a curtain that gets pulled back.
But it's a physical location.
Physical location.
Your offices are there. There's interagency coordination. What else? What would somebody see if they walked into the NIFC campus?
They're going to see a running campus. So it's actually a pretty incredible spot. We've got the smoke jumper base there, a national smoke jumper base, also a geographical cache. So you'll see all of the comings and goings of getting resources out to fires. When I say resources, I mean actually pumps, hoses, all of the nitty gritty parts of that. Though Firefighter Foundation is also there. So you're going to see the memorial with all of the fallen firefighters. And then you'll have the ramp and all of the goings on of moving aircraft from across the board. It's a pretty cool spot. It's 17 acres, right by the airport. So.
And other than people like me, or there's some other non-federal folks, I go there representing IFC, but I'm essentially a guest. a couple others from the state or some of the tribes. Are the folks that work there all federal government employees?
The majority of the folks there are federal government employees.
Yeah, and which agencies are those from?
They're Bureau of Land Management, Fish and Wildlife Service, National Parks, U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Indian Affairs. We do have some folks representing FEMA, and I think that's the hub of it.
Gotcha. So
mostly.
trying to get everybody who might have like
Exactly.
some space in the wildland arena, they're working together. Trying
Exactly.
again, trying to get yellow shirts.
It's our headquarters out west for fire.
Got it. That makes sense. Okay, so the other thing that I think a lot of folks here, because we're from essentially local government fire service for the most part, might not understand. Your title is program manager. And I know you didn't come from local government, so you maybe can't equate it to what in a fire department is, but two questions come from that. One, maybe what is a program manager? So what is it that you do as your job? And I'm also interested in your career leading up to that. Like,
Sure.
how did you get here to this position?
Super great question. I don't know an exact parallel, but essentially, I am responsible for navigating the comings and goings with anything related to NWCG and coordination closely with the executive board. So I kind of see myself as a chief of staff, or if you're thinking about the ICS system, kind of the IC of NWCG.
That makes sense, I'm sure, to people. The
that-
IC of NWCG. Yep. Okay.
Where I got here and how I landed, I've taken a lot of random turns in my life. Definitely a little bit of an untraditional path. Came from rural Idaho and honestly didn't know much about land management or wildland fire, but I had a vision of going to college and I knew I needed a way to pay for it. And so the Bureau of Land Management came to my little high school and they were looking for firefighters. And I was fortunate to get picked up. For those that know me, I'm a pretty petite female. And so I was really, really scared about entering that wildland fire world. So I shoved my backpack full of rocks and I would hike up and down the canals to make sure that I could pass those physical requirements. And long story short, eventually landed a job and worked on engines for a number of years throughout college. Then I got kind of in a different space where I was helping more with the emergency services side of it. So the emergency medical services. So wildland fire has been a little bit behind the curve when we talked about EMS for our first responders. And we really struggled with that. We always just had EMTs on crews and they were kind of encapsulated just within that crew, but we understood we had a greater need based on lessons learned from fatalities. So worked for a woman that had a really clear vision and was able to really support getting the EMS system within wildland fire really established, where we had medical directors and could really cross those state lines and provide better quality care for our first responders on the line, which was really a cool opportunity. And a lot of credit goes to that woman that had the vision. And I was just able to there to support that. Then took another hard turn and became a district ranger for the U.S. Forest Service. And so what is that? Basically, you're kind of IC of a big plot of land and you manage the land management accordingly. But what that means is that as an agency administrator, those IMTs that come in, you're now directing them what to do. IMTs, incident management teams, work for the agency administrator. So I became an agency administrator for the U.S. Forest Service.
We got an audience.
I'm taking autographs.
One-
later if you'd like.
Katie, one term you've mentioned a few times is a different multi-stakeholder engagement, working across state lines. I'm fortunate to be giving a presentation tomorrow on strategic partnerships, and the way that I look at partnerships is how do we create win-wins? And with all of these different organizations you've worked with, I imagine you've worked with a lot of different 3- and 4-letter agencies, local, state, federal organizations. What are some maybe any sort of examples or insights about how to sort of create this opportunity for partnership, opportunity for engagement, especially if you're talking in a wildfires that don't really care about boundary lines, they just the fire's just doing its thing. Any insights you can glean on that?
I think with creating partnerships, you have to honestly be willing to listen. You have to be able to walk into a room and hear what people have to say, and then go back and kind of do the homework and reach out. In this space, you have to have the courage to lean in and ask for assistance accordingly. And I think sometimes we can get into our own like little sections and we lose that opportunity to sort of reach across the table and say, hey, can you help me? We have a common issue that we need to resolve, and how do we do that together? So to me, that comes with humility and actually being able to lean in, because I think within Wildland Fire, we have seen this massive increase of how it has no boundaries. And if we don't actually come together and work on solving the problem together, we're all failing.
Kevin's going to use some of that tomorrow when he speaks. You know that. That's
Yeah,
how.
I'm thinking that's not clip in the show. Listen to Katie. I don't know.
And that's the beauty of NWCG, to be honest. NWCG, you're always between a rock and a hard place, but people are willing to come to the table and really have those hard conversations for us to be able to move forward and solve really big issues at that national level. So.
Yeah, and sort of equating what Katie's talking about to the space that we're in as a fire chief, as I'd imagine a lot of people here are, you were balancing those interests with elected officials, just like you're doing with this board. And I have to say, Katie's really gifted at it. As somebody who's sort of a recipient of that skill set, I get to see Katie in action doing that strategic balance. It's with grace that she does it, but it doesn't mean it's easy. And so, yeah, I think Kevin needs you to be in his course tomorrow.
10:30 to 12.
Gonna need you educating the folks on that.
I have confidence in you, Kevin. You can do it.
Yeah.
He's got this.
Another, and this is sort of like a firefighter 101, but you mentioned the term smoke jumpers. And I think those who are in the fire service have a general idea of what is a smoke jumper. But when thinking about, this is sort of a 30,000-foot question about kind of like what role
Good
do
pun.
smoke. Yeah, seriously, jumping from, I don't know if they're jumping 30,000.
No.
But when thinking of kind of the role that smoke jumpers play within the wildfire response, and I've seen some of my friends who are on social media and see them out and out deployed for 1 to 4 weeks at a time. I think there's a lot of disconnect in terms of what that life is like in a day in the life of a smoke jumper, firefighter, wildland firefighter. And maybe Eric, you can glean a little light on this. Could you explain a little bit more about kind of what role do smoke jumpers play within wildfire response, early, active, and post response within the wildfire dynamic?
Yeah, I can definitely give my best shot. I've not been a smoke jumper. So for full disclosure, any smoke jumpers listening out there, I don't want to claim that I'm an expert, but really the smoke jumpers are that initial attack. They're the first on scene. Oftentimes, it's that idea that you drop a load of jumpers in and they can get around that fire pretty quickly. Another awesome skill set. They're fast. Quite talented. It's a national resource, and they're able to move around much quicker than maybe some of our more traditional resources that we would think of, like engines as an example. The other really cool role that smoke jumpers play is they really serve as that middle management on fires. A lot of them have some of those qualifications, IC3, division supervisor, et cetera, that is really critical for the success of the ground crews, and also leading up to your operations section. So they play a very critical role across the wildland fire community and are a pretty amazing resource, to be honest.
Yeah, and I will add to that from my also not smoke jumper understanding, but from listening to all the folks who do this, it emphasizes a bit that they're often used as initial attack in remote areas because they can be dropped in, take care of business where other resources might not be able to get to very easily. And like Katie said, super talented, super well resourced in terms of education, the equipment they can be dropped in with. They do their thing and they get out of there. And if they don't get out of there, it's because something's growing and they can provide a really great transition. They got a high level of operational leadership to start to get in instant management. And the folks that I've worked with who are smoke jumpers just seem extraordinarily talented and just comfortable with that skill set. They're comfortable with their sort of isolation and ability to handle. It's probably something that you and I both would have loved to have done in our earlier years, and maybe you as well. Although I do think, you had talked about being a petite woman in a business where I wouldn't define most people to be petite women, but it's clear you started like everybody else. You did the same testing they did. You did the same, and you probably still do the same qualification. Has that been like a career ride of ups and downs, or is it? I mean, tell us about that.
Yeah, that is a great question. I think it has been an emotional up and down.
Yeah.
Kind of feeling like a bit of an imposter to be honest. And I don't know that I was actually really ever good at it, but I had the grit and the courage to continue to try, and it taught me a lot. And I think that's the neat thing about what Wildland Fire teaches you. And I'm not sure how structure is, but you just never know what you're going to get into. So every day you show up, and you have to be willing to just roll with the unknowns and walk into environments that you are unpredictable and where you're going to go, what that's going to look like. Are you going to have resources? If you don't have resources, how long is it going to take to get there? And you constantly are having to have that creative problem solving in really extreme environments to figure out how to fix whatever problems in front of you. And so I think those skill sets that you learn in operations, regardless of where you start within Wildland Fire, are completely applicable to any professional career that
Totally.
one might pursue. So,
Yeah.
although I didn't spend a lifetime in operations, I did 7 years. Those skill sets really set me up, I feel like.
Yeah, that's a lot of years.
Forward.
That's a lot of years of going out for long periods of time with groups of stinky us.
Can you imagine me in the CDL on a Type 4?
Right?
You can barely see over the steering wheel.
Yeah, no, that is impressive. I think we were all probably rightfully impressed with, what you've gone through, what smoke jumpers go through, what everybody goes through in this
Everyone
space. It really is shared.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that experience has seasoned who you are as a leader as well. So what's the future of you, and what are you looking at NWCG and in the wildland space is the next? What are the things we should be working towards as a group, not just you, but as a group?
That's a really good question, and a little bit hard for me to answer. I think where the future is we all know that we've got a lot of challenges that we're facing within the wildland fire setting. Specifically, we talked at length the last couple of days about the WUI and whatnot. And I think it's going to take us all coming together to figure out how we are more futuristically speaking than we have been in the past. Our wildland fire tactics and strategies on the ground haven't changed. And I think that's fantastic. But we also need to incorporate new tools, new technology, and new ideas into that space in order to address challenges that we haven't actually seen until the last couple of years. And that's going to take a collective group of us to come together and do that, because not one agency, not one individual, not one organization has all of those slideshows to really be able to address the challenges that we're facing. And we're crossing boundary lines way differently than we have ever in the past.
You mentioned technology in there. Of course, my ears were perked up on that, but I'm curious, especially within the realm of wildfire prevention, wildfire response, and I'm sure you've seen and heard of the whole program, the XPRIZE initiative, and there's this whole push of how can we better use satellites, which are flying around Earth and giving us a whole nother bird's eye view, as well as using satellites for early detection and planning out how we can respond to fires before, during, and after. But then also the use of drones in some capacity for early response, in different things of that. What are your thoughts on the use of satellites and drones and how they play a role in what general wildland response is, but particularly what NWCG is doing?
I think they're a critical tool, and I think we've all seen that sort of space continue to grow and increase. Within NWCG, we do have positions and qualifications associated with like UAS, et cetera, pilots. So we are taking a harder look at that. It's a space that we continue to explore. Actually, about a year and a half ago, I think it is, Eric, that NASA joined NWCG as a member and has really sort of been trying to push some of the use of satellites, et cetera. That being said, maybe this is a little old school. I think we have to continue to use the human brain and our critical minds to work together to address that hand in hand with technology. I think if we rely too heavily on technology and not the skill sets of the actual practical use and the slideshows that we develop as humans, it will not be successful without those two hand in hand. So I definitely see an awesome push for technology. I think we need some education around it. But that has to go hand in hand with the human side
Can't
of
just
it.
offload everything to AI.
You can't offload everything to
I
AI.
mean, and again, that's how tech is a tool to help us do our jobs better, but I think we've seen in a lot of examples of tech gone wrong. But yeah, Eric, and your thoughts on that? How is tech a piece of the puzzle that's not replacing the human element, but it's helping, and whether it's from a satellite or drone perspective, helping what first responders, particularly within the wildland response, do their job a little bit better, a little bit safer.
My take isn't a whole lot different than Katie's, quite honestly. I'm like probably most people in our profession, impressed with how technology can help us. I'm impressed with satellites and drones and their capabilities. And as somebody who actually is close to XPRIZE, I'm also excited about the potential, but this stuff can't exist in a vacuum. It's never going to replace people. It's never going to replace good human decision making. And so designing those systems in which we can accept the products of this technology and digest it well and help us with situational awareness and decision making. I'm excited, but I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver, which I think is really easy with technology. It's got to be done right, but it is pretty darn exciting.
Yeah, I mean, this Pandora's box will solve all your problems.
Yeah.
But I mean, it is cool. I'm particularly bullish in terms of how these pieces of the puzzle can be a force enabler, but of course, only as good as the human behind it. So it's good to hear that NWCG is taking baby steps into that.
They're on top of it.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to ask before I ask her a final question?
Please.
All right, Katie, of what are you the most proud? You've come up through the ranks, boots on the ground, fighting fire, driving trucks out in the wilderness, running pieces of land, being the IC of NWCG. Now, Kevin hopefully wants you designing, protocols for satellites. You'll be a drone pilot,
Smoke jumper.
a smoke jumper.
Yes.
To be clear, she was pretty good about saying, that's not me, but you've done a lot, with the exception of maybe the satellites and the smoke jumping. Or even personally, you're just a good person. I work around you. What are you the most proud of?
So I knew this question was coming, and it's a hard one for me to answer, but when I thought about it yesterday and kind of thinking about it, I'm really proud of and to work in this space, to work in partnerships, to try and move things forward, to address all of these challenges that we all face. And looking back at my career, I'm really proud of my courage and my grit. This is a hard space to work in. You're always between a rock and trying to figure out how to get to yes, how to provide quality customer service to our responders is tricky. And so my willingness to lean in, my willingness to have humility and ask for assistance when I need it, and that grit and perseverance to continue to take on the challenges despite not knowing what right looks like, and just leaning in and trying, I think has really been led to a lot of rewarding outcomes that I would have never imagined when I started over 20 years ago on a BLM engine in the desert of rural Idaho. So grit and courage to tackle the hard issues, to try and make a difference in this space.
Yeah, I consider you courageous. I consider you full of grit, and I'll also add to that, you do all of that with grace, which is a pretty difficult balance. So Katie, thank you. Kevin, anything closing?
Thank you, Kate. I know it's been great to hear your story, and you're definitely a role model to many, and I'm excited to continue to learn more about your journey and just keep it up.